Hey, what's up everybody? Landan with LMR.com. We have a good video for you today. We're gonna be comparing some Ford power in these Fox chassis cars. We've got a Gen 2 Coyote engine over here in Ted's 85 ASC McLaren, a 393 cubic inch Windsor in the 88 black coupe that we've dubbed Dragula. And then over here we have the 7.3 liter Godzilla engine, which is 445 cubic inches, in the 92 Patina LX hatchback, code named Green Goblin. We recently dynoed Dragula to get some fresh numbers on it. And when we did that, we started comparing these cars and we thought, what the heck? Let's get in here, let's make a video and show all of you what these cars are making and kind of have a comparison as to the specific combinations that are in these cars. I get it. We can start rabbit holing this as to, well, do this to that car and do this to that car. I get it. We are just talking about the current configurations that are in these cars and kind of what we know now, the specific information we have available to us. So before we take a look at the graphs, let's kind of talk about maybe some pros, cons, benefits, and where you may find yourself in trying to make a decision for your specific car. And I'll be the first to tell you, at the end of the day, it's your car. You have a vision for it, you have a goal for it, and you're gonna spend the money and you're gonna spend the time on something that you believe in and that you want to see come to fruition for your particular car. By no means are we telling you that any one of these swaps are better than the other. You're gonna have to form your own opinion. All right, so we'll talk about some of the stuff with the Coyote engine first. Number one, this is gonna have great road manners and drivability. Two, it has a great, robust offering of parts. Due to the displacement of this engine, it's not going to make near the torque as the 393 cubic inch engine or the 7.3 liter Godzilla. The trade-off to that is due to the design of the Coyote, this has a high RPM capability. You know, we're talking 7,000, 7,500s, upwards to 8,000 plus RPM, which when you get up there that high with an engine, stuff can get really, really fun. Switching gears over here to the 393 cubic inch engine in Dragula. The Windsor engine of the three is the simplest, simply because it's period correct for the car. Some of the 351 specifics that you would need would be an intake, distributor, long tube headers, oil pan, and just a few miscellaneous brackets. Now, what's kind of making the Windsor swap a little bit more difficult is it's no longer probably considered the budget swap due to the cost increase in the availability of cores and crate engines, not to mention aftermarket availability for EFI intake manifolds, EFI control systems, as well as long tube headers. But this particular engine will be true to what the car originally came with from the factory. All right, so now let's talk about the 7.3 liter Godzilla engine. Obviously, this is the bigger engine of the three, 445 cubic inches. This has the ability to make some great power with a simple intake manifold and a camshaft swap, and that's been proven on plenty of engines out there that you see on the internet. It's also going to make a boatload of torque due to what the engine was originally designed for, be it an F250 and F350 Super Duty truck. The Godzilla swap is still relatively fresh, although it is picking up some steam. And to our knowledge, there is still only one K-member available for specifically a Fox chassis car. And because of that K-member and the size of the engine, you do have some constraints. This particular car here does not have power steering and it does not have power brakes. Whenever we did put this engine into this car, well, like any engine swap, we did have to do some figuring out. And I mean, we were kind of one of the first ones to do it. Specifically in a Fox Body Mustang. And then one other thing, this is a heavy engine. It's gonna be heavier than your Coyote and your Windsor engine. While we're still on the topic of a pushrod engine, both the Godzilla and of course the 393 cubic inch Windsor will have the ability to make some pretty sweet sound with some aftermarket camshafts, and that's exactly the case for Dragula. This car sounds absolutely amazing. Now, I know what you're probably gonna say. Yes, you can make the Coyote sound cool with its little ghost cam stuff, but let's be honest, that is not gonna hold a candle to a real camshaft and a pushrod engine. There will also be some hood clearance issues associated with the Windsor engine, judging by the cow hood here on Dragula, as well as the Godzilla engine, and of course, judging by the cow hood on the Green Goblin. All right, people, now that we've covered some details and benefits of each specific swap in their respective cars, let's take a look at the dyno results. All right, so in no particular order, we'll just go ahead and start with Ted's 85 ASC McLaren, the Coyote swap. It made 428 horsepower at 6,500 RPM and 390.8 pound-feet of torque at 4,300 RPM. Up next would be the Green Goblin with the 7.3 liter Godzilla. it made 417.8 horsepower at 5,100 RPM and 477.6 pound-feet of torque at 3,900 RPM. Again, a lot of torque with the Godzilla engine. And then over here, Dragula with the 393 cubic inch Windsor, it's making 422 horsepower at 5,300 RPM and 453.8 pound-feet of torque at 4,100 RPM. It's cool to see how close they are in horsepower. Give or take from the 428 over here to the, might as well just call it 418. There's a 10 horsepower spread between these two. And then, the Windsor kind of falls right smack dab in the middle. Like I said about the high RPM capability of the Coyote, its graph just kind of stretches for miles, if you will, in comparison to the two pushrod engines. Now, yes, you can make a pushrod engine have some high RPM capability, but that's not what we have here today. And then touching base on the torque a little bit more, again, the old saying, no replacement for displacement, and that really is shown here on the torque side of things between these engine combinations. And driving all three of them, they all feel completely different. And I know that sounds as obvious as it sounds, but this thing kind of just is mildly mannered enough until you get up there into the high RPM range. This comes out of the hole and hits so hard and carries very strong. Same kind of for the Godzilla. It comes out of the hole really hard. It does have a little bit shorter RPM range than these other two, and obviously the Coyote. So I think that the Godzilla, at least driving this one here, it's like so much fun, and then it's like shifting gears, and you're like, oh, that's it? I want more, if that makes sense. And these two can kind of lung it out a little bit further than the Goblin, and again, especially the Coyote. All right, so let's close this one out. Again, we're not picking sides. All of these engine combinations and all three of these cars serve their purpose. They all kind of started life very rough. Ted's car was rough, Dragula was rough. This car's still kind of rough just because we wanted to keep it patina, but it came from a $300 junkyard save into a Godzilla swapped Fox Body we've dubbed Green Goblin. So all three of these cars are neat. They share a similar story in that they all were once very rough and kind of, well, there's no kind of, they've been saved, and they have some pretty kick-ass swaps to give the cars a lot of character. And I know I told you we're not gonna pick sides, but I have to pick a favorite. I think it's only right for the video. I like them all. They all have their own character. They all got plenty of soul, but I think my favorite's gotta be Dragula. I like the period correct Windsor engine. It sounds great, it smells great, and it's fun. It's a black coupe. It's just hard to beat. Even though, Ted's car, plenty rare, one of like 151, I think. Very rare car. Love the Capris, the four-eyed headlights with the, kind of step flared front fender and rear fender, the bubble hatch, definitely made those Capris unique. And then kind of the ASC McLaren tidbits with, with the orange pinstripe, the headlight covers, and then those SV Series 1 wheels that we did custom for Ted. Those really stand out on his car as well. And then the Goblin, it's definitely a blue collar car, I guess you could say. Again, saved it from the wrecking yard for 300 bucks. And we used it for mock-up and R&D for several years. And then as kind of the time went on and on, the Godzilla engine came out and put it in the car just to see what it would look like, and it was a snowball from there. We started hooking some things up. Team Z came out with their K-member, oil pan surface to get rid of the truck oil pan, which is hangs super low underneath the engine, and I think the ground clearance was like 4 inches or something crazy. You'd hit the speed bump if you were going over a speed bump with the oil pan. And then Cameron Brady and Scott Hubbard finished the rest of the car off with the interior, drivetrain, suspension, all that good stuff. And we've run this at the track, I think at 1117. That video will be for you down in the description, but that was off the trailer. We didn't really mess with anything other than tire pressure. So still some time left in this car. And like anything, we're excited to be able to work on them and get to them whenever we have the time. So we're gonna sign off. Hope y'all enjoyed this one. It was cool to see these particular engines side by side in those dyno graphs and see how they compare. And maybe if you're considering either one of these swaps, you have the data to go off of, and you can crunch your numbers and see where you want to go with your car. Hope this one brought a lot of value to you. If it did, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications. And then until we see you in the next one, for all things Fox Body, keep it right here with the real enthusiasts. LMR.com.